Alexa, turn on the on-air sign. Okay, it's real. We're live. Hey, welcome to the official Adobe Video Community Meetup live stream for March of 2022. AVC meetups feature product demos, conversations, Q&As, etc. with the Adobe product teams, as well as spotlight exciting projects and creative workflows from the Adobe community. This event is part of a regular series that streams live the last Wednesday of the month on our YouTube and our Facebook channels. And today's focus is about one of the most unique audio features that Adobe provides. I'm Durin Gleaves, Audio Product Manager, and I'll be joined today by two members of the Adobe audio teams, Adolfo and Satish. And later, we'll welcome incredibly talented independent filmmaker Jim Cummings to share he and his team's experience producing last year's creative and unique independent film, The Beta Test. We also have Michael and Matt in the chat pods answering your questions during the live stream, so please send what you got. But we're going to start off by showing a little bit of Adobe magic that we brought to Premiere this year. I was going to do this. We're going to start by showing off a little bit of Adobe magic that we brought to Premiere this year, a feature called REMIX. So please enjoy this quick teaser video to learn a little bit more about what REMIX does and why you so desperately need it.
Music makes stories come to life, but it's not easy to get a song that exactly matches the duration of your video. Until now, that left you with two choices. Trim off and fade out your music to fit the video, or take out the razor tool and start carefully slicing the music track, which can take a long time. But now there's a much better way to get your music exactly right. Meet REMIX in Premiere Pro, powered by Adobe Sensei. REMIX does the hard work for you so you can focus on getting the creative results that you want. To use REMIX, click and hold the Ripple tool group and select the REMIX tool. Use the REMIX tool to click and drag the right edge of your music clip to the length that you need. REMIX analyzes the different musical and rhythmic elements in the song and generates a new mix fitting the duration you specified. Small zigzag lines show you where REMIX has made cuts so that you can quickly preview the changes. These edits are so subtle that they're usually imperceptible. And because REMIX is so fast, it's really easy to try out different mixes. REMIX uses the power of Adobe Sensei to help you retime your music to match your video, so you can tell your story the way that you want. REMIX is available now in the latest release of Premiere Pro. Try it today.
Please welcome one of the newest members of the audio team at Adobe, Adolfo Hernandez Santisteban. Adolfo, did I get that right? Adolfo is a UX and UI designer who joined us in the second half of last year, bringing years of audio and film production experience that he honed in his hometown of Mexico City. After his first Adobe task, which was making a video sharing his paella recipe with all of us, Adolfo jumped right into our work head first, spearheading interviews and research sessions with Premiere beta participants, really exploring how people were interacting with Adobe REMIX in their timelines. And those insights really supported making significant changes to the set of parameters and the interactions that we built into the feature. And in the middle, I've had the pleasure to work on audio with senior quality engineer Satish Ramakrishnan. You guys are making me work for this today. For close to a decade, his commitment to quality and stability has been an inspiration to engineers, marketing, and everyone else that's responsible for building Audition, Premiere Pro, and all the other Adobe applications and services that y'all love to use. Satish is also a fantastic tour guide to have while you're visiting India, with the knowledge of the best restaurants and bars in town. And I'll also say, try and pronounce Durin Gleaves if you've never met me before. It's really tough. So I feel the pain. Hey, it's pretty late for Satish. It's after midnight. It's lunchtime here in Seattle, which is maybe why I'm talking about food so much. Let's shift the discussion to REMIX. So, Adolfo, you joined Adobe right in the middle of a major feature initiative that was already partly designed, already partly implemented, and which we probably could have shipped as is without a lot of interference from design. It would have been good enough, but I really felt like your involvement in the process that you brought made the entire workflow that we implemented far better. Can you talk about your approach to software design, user research, maybe a little bit about the background of things you've done in the past or how you brought that to Adobe?
Yeah, absolutely. I think one of the biggest things that I realized when I joined the team is like the amount of like different tools that we have across our different software that we offer to our community. So we have Premiere, we have Audition, and when I was assigned to work on Remix specifically, that it's a well-known love tool in Audition. And it was for me super interesting to understand the different mental models that users have when actually working with it in Audition, and how we could actually bring that back to Premiere Pro and actually be effective and had the same impact that it has been having for years in Audition. So when I got to Adobe to work, and this being my first task, the first thing that I started to realize is like, okay, we have the designs there, and we have implemented them inside Premiere Pro, but what else our users need, or like how is this actually affecting them, or how do they see the usability of it so far? So I think it was like 2 months in, we set up a huge, not a huge, but we got some participants to use the beta version with Remix. And we actually asked them to bring a project with them where they could actually test it out and tell us what they felt was working and what they was not working. I think these really honest conversations of getting feedback from the community is what actually make us polish and get our tools to the next level to really offer what you all need. So once we started doing, like, we actually learned a lot of it, and we were able, if some of you actually use the tool during the beta period of time, I think you guys saw a little bit how it was. There's a different grouping of how the tools are today, and also how the labels change. So when we were asking different questions on how they were feeling about it, some of our users, or the feedback that we got, were that some of the labels were not intuitive, or they were not self-explained of what they actually were supposed to be doing. And so we worked with them and got the feedback, wrote it down, and we analyzed the data that we got from the designs. And we actually got to what we have today, which I think was a huge improvement after seeing how some of you have actually been making these amazing videos of Remix today, and how easy you all can explain it. We changed labels, like in beta, some of our parameters that we had, they were called, for example, edit length. And a lot of the users were confused about if that was meant to be the edit length of the clip when Remix was actually acting on it. But it was not about that. It was actually about the segments that it was using, the algorithm was using to conform the music into this new duration. So we changed after hearing some of suggestions and kind of like the words what they were being used, we changed it to segments, for example. And we had another label that was called features, and that was also not really well understood by some of our users. And we changed it to the word variation, so they could actually make something different, kind of like remixes based on how melodic or harmonic features
the content was. Yeah.
The content they will be. So it was actually pretty cool. But I think one of the biggest thing is that we realized that the most common tools that or the focus for our users was really about the target duration. It's like they wanted to actually fit that music into a specific duration. So the tool that they were using the most was like the target duration, or the ripple edit remix tool that we brought into the timeline, which was I think that's what makes Remix so magical in Premiere, because you can just select a new timeline tool, literally drag the clip, and you will have just the duration that you needed for it. So that was like eye-opening, how we needed to work a little bit more on that, polish it, because that would be the way that we would be saving so much time for our users.
Yeah, that's probably a good segue to one of the questions I had for Satish, which was when we were looking at the Remix in the past and how people were using it, one of the things I noticed was somebody would say, oh, I need to get something to 30 seconds. So they type 30 seconds in, and it might be 32 seconds. And rather than go to the parameters and start adjusting things, they would type in 28 seconds as their target. And eventually it would be some low target that had enough buffer to it that it was around what they wanted. And we started taking a look at the accuracy. I know that we made some changes to the algorithm. Do you want to talk about how that came about and what we did there?
Yeah. So the algorithm, main change, absolutely right. The main change, actually, what happened was in the algorithm itself, and it was a pretty core kind of change. So it depended on the beats of the song. So that was the main, and it became more accurate in how it used to understand the beats and how it did it. So the testing involved around this was a huge effort, where for every little change that went in, we actually had to test the entire algorithm. We had to test the entire feature, and testing for this involves testing from songs that have different types of beats, which means songs from all genres that you can think of. And I also added songs from different cultures. You mean I meant what do you call them? The folk songs from I had a list of, I think, 8 countries. It included Kenya, Japan, India, Brazilian. So we had very unique songs from these, and then we also had the stock audio, and so it, more than the number of songs, it was, you're right, I mean, the variations of each song, and then you multiply it with the number of songs. So that was how the testing actually happened. And
I mean,
and all of it,
Spotify has
yeah,
over 70 million tracks. So you didn't make your way through the catalog?
not the entire one. I did try, of course, but yeah. So the variations to these songs, and more than that, see, every time we make a change and we test it, we find some problem there, and then we go back and we have multiple discussions saying, you know what, this is a degradation, and then we again go back and say, you know what, if the improvement is way more than the degradation, so let's just remove this and see how much improvement we get. We give that weightage, and we kept doing it, and we were supposed to release it in November of last year, and then we said, no, this isn't good enough. Let's just go one step further and say, you know what, now we are good enough to release it. And in between that, we really did improve the algorithm, and we found out exactly what to test. And yeah, I mean, it was a huge effort, and it involved everybody, absolutely everybody.
You're right about the genre. So I was talking about Remix at an AI convention at Berklee College of Music in Boston several years back, and there was this music professor in the back of the group who was really skeptical about this the whole time. And he came up to me afterward, and he's like, "Sure, okay, great, it works on pop music and dance music, but how does it work on a Mahler symphony?" And I was like, "I have no idea. Let's find out." So we pulled one up, and I'm not up 100% on my Mahler symphonies, but we played a pretty good one. It sounded, and I was like, this sounds great to me. And he's like, well, it sounds okay, but if you know it, and then he walked away. But I felt like I was kind of vindicated that it sounds okay was pretty ringing praise from somebody who walked up so skeptical. You love jazz yet?
Yeah. Oh no, please. That takes time. That really takes time. And jazz is one of those which I've learned that you either have the ear to listen to it, and you have the appreciation for it, or you don't. I mean, this isn't one of those where you grow into it. And very honestly, if you tell me that I can grow into it and I need to subject myself to 4 hours of jazz every day, no, I'm going to still give up and say, no, I don't do jazz.
Well, I gave
But
you
yeah,
a great
jazz.
to try out. So
Yeah. I love how
Yeah, exactly.
I love how you guys test on all these edge cases of different types
Oh
of
God,
music,
yeah.
and that's how that really shows in the end, because maybe a lot of people wouldn't think that they would use that type of track on their productions, but you doing that on the back end, like continuously testing now and stress testing the algorithm, is what really can get us to be able to deliver like a high quality product that will actually be able to go across every single use case. So that's pretty cool.
Yeah, and with the pandemic and stuff, with kids at home, so whenever you play a song, you can't really have the headphones on the whole time. So it has to happen on the speakers. So if the kids start listening to a song and they say, you know what, I like the song, and then they come back with their suggestions. So I know for sure, I can promise you that all Blackpink songs are great. They work perfectly well because my daughter likes it, and all Alan Walker songs play beautifully because my son likes it. So the minute one of these songs come in, they bring in their playlist and they say, play this, play this, play this, play this. Remix is 30 seconds, 45 seconds. So they were involved in testing the product with me. So I know it works.
Well, that's great.
There's been a huge number of combinations. Yes.
I've told this story before, and I think I even said I was going to retire from telling it, but I'll tell it one more time. This will be my comeback, and then I'm going to retire again. When we were first implementing Remix years ago, I started testing that right when Photoshop was celebrating its 25th anniversary, 25th birthday. And Photoshop makes really good money. And so they bought themselves a Super Bowl commercial and a minute, 60 seconds of airtime during the Super Bowl. Very expensive. You're paying by the fraction of a second. You can't go over. And it was a gorgeous commercial. And they licensed Dream On by Aerosmith. With the big piano intro, the big, the first verse, the big bombastic boom, boom ending and the ring out. It was a fantastic commercial. I think we paid an audio engineer, music engineer, somewhere around $10K to do the remix of this song. It was perfect. I think it was about a week late, but it came in on time. The commercial went out. It was wonderful. So I grabbed the video file for that commercial and I decided to see, could Remix do as good a job or as close to what kind of job would Remix do with Dream On by Aerosmith? And because it was all about time, I wanted to time box it. So I timed myself, ripping the song from a CD, bringing it into Audition, running Remix, and getting a 60-second version that fit the video. And it took 45 seconds from beginning to end, was as free as a Creative Cloud membership is. And arguably, it was a better remix. The Super Bowl commercial had the first verse that everybody knows the words to. When I look in the mirror, that one. Nobody remembers karaoke. Nobody remembers the words to the second verse, but that's the one that Remix selected. But it fit perfect. It was right on beat. It was super fun. It was really pretty amazing.
And I should add, even while testing it, right? Every time the results came out, every time the analysis is complete and you listen to it, you still feel the magic. After every song, after every variation, after every little bit of change in the slider, you always feel the magic. So
like,
I get to have that much more fun. So that's awesome.
Yeah, that's a good question. You didn't have the domain expertise of an audio background like Adolfo and I before you came onto the team. What was the how daunting was it to work and step into something that was kind of so technical, or what was your process for ensuring that what you were doing on the engineering testing side met?
Yeah. So so I wasn't a professional audio guy, but I did dabble in audio a lot during my college days. I used a software called, I don't think you'd remember it. It was called Cool Edit Pro or something like that. So I don't think you'd remember it. So I've used that. And with that, I had a good bit of 2 years of music making experience with that. And I was a DJ part-time. And I made cassettes for my friends. Remember those things? You rewind with your pencil and all of that. Yeah, those things. So, and all of this was, of course, not for money, and it wasn't full time. But yeah, with software testing, right? I have now 18, 20, 19 years of experience now. So my way of looking at Premiere or Audition or any software is first as a software. So all of the other principles simply fall into place. We have a very strong software testing principles, and we just apply that. And there's a very clear method involved. And it's not really secrets. And it helps that the Adobe generally and the audio team specifically has a very strong culture of, having a quality-centric approach to their outputs and stability and everything else. So it was a good, synchronization with what I wanted to do and how the team also, took that as priority. And while I was at it, I was, again, continuously around folks with a ton of experience. Like, I don't know, you, I know you for now 11 years now. So tons of experience. And wasn't just you, the other members in the team, and there were musicians around me and some beginner podcasters. I think 2 of my neighbors are podcasters. So it's with this kind of experience over the last 8 years in exactly this domain, and that continuous interaction gave me the perspective that's needed to view it from a user's side of things, and both large scale and small scale ones, and that pretty much helps me every day. So yes, you're right, I'm still learning and I'll still continue to learn, but it was I started looking at it as a software first, and nailed down the rest of the things, and
That's
then
great.
got into the domain, and then started talking to experts and then learning from them, and I had great help. So I had a very, very good setup there for that.
I think it happened the opposite to me, Satish. Now that you're mentioning that is like coming from a background experience. And when I grabbed Remix for the first time, I was able to understand a lot of these technical words that were involved and like how it was actually working. Because I have used similar tools in the past, or I have used it in Audition. But it's really at some point, it's like I was biased by some of the concepts because like, oh, this should work like this. I understand it completely. But it's not until we get to really this user testing loop where we're actually asking the right users, people that might not have any expertise in audio that are using Premiere Pro today, that things that sometimes for us are people who have been working on audio, they're just like common or intuitive. For them, they're not. And I think that's pretty magical, that moment when you realize like we can make this simpler, we can make it more intuitive. Like it doesn't have to be we don't need to go and use the word pro classification to make it as an excuse to make things hard. Like we can actually make it simple for everyone across it. So that's
I think that was my favorite takeaway from you and I doing the user research with Remix in public beta, in the Premiere Pro public beta. People were using it and giving us feedback whether we wanted it or not, and that was fantastic. It really kind of showcased why that public beta program is kind of special and unique. And I guess that's a good segue, talking about the Premiere Pro beta, to seg into our next guest, whose film, The Beta Test, released on the festival circuit, whatever we called that during COVID, just about a year ago, or just over a year ago, including at the Tribeca Film Festival. It was picked up by IFC Films for U.S. distribution. It was made with a smaller budget than most housing prices right now. And it currently boasts a 92% fresh score on Rotten Tomatoes, which is higher than 7 of this year's Best Picture nominees at the Academy Awards. And the guy joining us today, Jim Cummings, co-wrote, co-directed, starred, edited, and mixed the film without the need for huge studios and expensive equipment. Before I bring him in, please enjoy this behind-the-scenes look that he shared with us on the making of his film.
Hi, I'm Jim Cummings, and I'm the writer, director, and editor of The Beta Test, which we finished entirely in Adobe software. So we edited the film entirely in Premiere, and I had done it for about 12 months. To give you an idea of actually the tech of the movie, we had about 70 tracks of audio that we had to organize into dialogue, music, and effects. I use the AirDrop functionality on the iPhone to share it to my iMac. So we lay in these 3 tracks here that are the 3 different sounds that we want. In the multiverse system, and this is the one thing that's different, it felt like that. I don't know, it's hard to explain.
Wait, what's going on here? Hold on. Wait, this is really happening? You really did this?
That's pretty good. My least favorite thing about finishing any of our films was going to Pro Tools, because the software didn't speak well with Premiere, and it would take about 3 or 4 days just to get it to sound as good in Pro Tools as it did in Premiere. And I didn't want to do that anymore. I felt like the industry was going to change towards much more conversational programming, and as soon as I heard that Audition was able to mix in 5.1, I said, let's take that risk. I just sent all of the film from Premiere to Audition, and immediately all of those filters that I had liked that were in Premiere transitioned into Audition, and I didn't have to fake it or make it sound like it did in Premiere in new software. The programs spoke to each other, and that was really revolutionary for me. So we brought in a sound mixer named John Bowers, who is a buddy, and we changed this room to be a 5.1 surround sound studio with rented speakers. John brought in his 5.1 device, and we were able to use Audition entirely in 5.1 from the comfort of my own place. There were times when some music didn't really work for the scenes, but I was able to use the REMIX tool to slow down the music sometimes to 20% of what the actual duration of the song was, and it makes it feel so much bigger in the moment. So there was a scene where my character is going into this hotel for this anonymous tryst, and I just slowed it down as much as possible and boosted the bass, and it made it feel like Hans Zimmer in a comedy. And that ended up being the final music in the film. There's plenty of things that you can do like that inside of Audition that, because it's the same keyboard shortcuts that you would be using for Premiere, you can experiment with and create something new. And it's really easy and a no-brainer that you would be doing it this way. It made the film much more polished than any other film that we have done before, because I had direct access to the creative of the film. Instead of it being the only thing that I wasn't able to sculpt or to perfect in the film process, I was able to directly work on it with our sound mixer, John, and tag each other out and do small things to get the audience to feel something in a certain moment. And it was really fluid. I don't think I'll turn back to the old ways of doing things. This is a much more cohesive way of making movies and doing it in a way that preserves the quality of the film without having to go through the rigmarole of power dynamics in post-production. I'm Jim Cummings. Thank you so much for watching, and go make movies.
With us today, Jim Cummings. Jim, hi. Hey, I loved that COVID bathrobe look. If I didn't get mistaken for Lebowski all the time, I'd probably be wearing my own bathrobe more often. But
I'm sure I'm not the only filmmaker that rocks a bathrobe while working. I think we should all join the movement.
If you can, why not, man? That's great. Hey, thanks for coming. That video was amazing. Your film work, certainly, Thunder Road, the first short was a big deal. We all talked about it when it was at Sundance, and then you went and made a full length out of it, which was so cool. And you're doing so much of it. What compels you to try and do it all? What compels you to be everything?
I think it's this like deep-seated drive to impress people, and I feel like I'm still a bit of the class clown in sixth grade, trying to make something impressive that will make people laugh at assembly. I don't know. I think really I came about in making movies when it was possible. Because of the technology that y'all run and created, I was able to hit the ground running and not have to compete or really work my way up in the Hollywood system. I was able to impersonate what they were doing on a much smaller scale. So really the burning ambition is to make something that is better than what I'm seeing on TV. Because that right now I feel like we're in this drought of stuff that is just very tame and sanitized. And the fact that anybody can make movies in a garage with a bathrobe is incredibly inspiring. But I would not be able to do that without y'all's infrastructure. So thank you.
That's it. That kind of leads into what was your technical background walking into filmmaking? I mean, you were acting before, but were you doing more production?
So I went to Emerson College in Boston, and I was using Final Cut Pro 7, and I learned in iMovie, and I was making movies when I was a kid in the backyard with my sister's camera that she used to film herself riding horses. And I was able to steal that kind of on the weekends and make stuff. And so I learned nonlinear editing as a child, basically. It was 12 to 18. And then I got Final Cut Pro 7 in college and learned that. And then as soon as Premiere had the keyboard shortcuts that I was used to, that was the only reason I didn't use a different software. And so immediately I started using Premiere. And the way that the technology was communicating with each other, the fact that the programs were all functioning ensemble, was a no-brainer. It was like I was able to do the stuff and compete at the level at these like college film festivals that I wanted to be. But really, I was an editor, freelance editor for years before I ever had dreams of acting. I'd never taken an acting class. I still haven't. And so I knew what a good movie looked like, and I knew what good acting looked like. And then in order to have the films be less mediocre than the stuff that I had made in college, I just had to learn everything else.
What were I don't know, what were some of the highlights from that process? Maybe we'll just focus on the latest movie. So what were some of the highlights that from the whole production process?
I mean, for the last two movies that I've made, features, Thunder Road and The Wolf of Snow Hollow, I only had about 4 or 5 days to mix the film. So when you're making a movie like that, you have a sound mixer and you have to go to a special stage to emulate a movie theater, or at least you're told that that's what you need. And then you're spending a lot of money just to rent the space and to hire the professionals to do it, because the software that we were using, I didn't know. It was the only part of the film process that I wasn't able to get my hands directly on. Pro Tools was a software I didn't know. It was a very expensive software growing up, same with Avid. And so I was always using less expensive software like Premiere. And then as soon as I heard that Adobe Audition could handle 5.1 surround sound, I thought, well, why don't we just do it a different way? I don't want to have to mix a movie in 5 days and then have that be the document of the quality of the movie for the rest of eternity. That is going to live forever on the internet with a 5-day mix. And I found a way to be able to buy speakers at a store that had a 45-day return policy. And so we bought the speakers and then returned them after 44 days of mixing. And my sound mixer, John Bowers, and I mixed the movie in 44 days. And it is infinitely more constructed and meticulous and a better soundscape than any of my other films, because we had that time and because I was able to use the same keyboard shortcuts that I had in Premiere to be able to make the movie more perfect. It was something that felt revolutionary to me. And as soon as we found out how to do it, I called Durin and I was like, how do I do this? I have no idea what I'm doing here. And he was like, it's going to be fine. We'll figure it out. We'll make it work. Here are some forums. Let's see what we can do. And we kind of threw it together. We were building the plane while we were flying it. And then as soon as it was done and it screened at Berlinale, it screened at Tribeca, and you can't tell the difference. It actually sounds better in a movie theater than any of my other films, because we had that time and because I was able to get my hands on it. And now I won't turn back. Now it's like, oh, this is a no-brainer. That the quality of the film is going to be better if you can just do it on your own.
Yeah, I fully anticipated getting more calls from you, but I checked in once and you're like, no, it's all good. We're good. We got it. And you kind of blew my last question, which was, having done it yourself now, would you do it again? It sounds like absolutely.
Oh yeah. Oh, absolutely. And I'm hoping to create like a small company that would just be finishing, and we can build it in the room that I'm sitting in right now. Like listening to Christopher Nolan on podcasts, he has like a side, garage, and he edits his movies that way. Like, so many big people are doing the same thing. Why can't we just follow in their footsteps? It's weird to think that anybody's convincing you otherwise.
Yeah. I think that's kind of what the whole revolution has been about. Is we really want to give everyone a voice. We want everyone to be able to share their story, and you can really only do that when you have the tools and the access that you need. I think that's exciting. Are there any other trends besides really kind of this approach of doing it all? Anybody? I'll open it up to Satish and Adolfo as well. What kind of trends do you kind of see maybe happening in audio and video production? Certainly I can kind of start in that. I'm seeing AI and machine learning just taking over so many aspects of things, that it's not necessarily the creative control. It's the organization. It's the classification. It's all transcription. It's all the things that used to take a lot of time, or that you would have to send out and wait for several days to get something back from somebody. And now it's seconds.
Yeah, I think one of the things that Jim is talking about is, like, I keep seeing and hearing from customers and users that they have to finish everything in the box, right? There's not a lot of budget or time to be able to send it everywhere. And when I was talking with some of the users around, like, how can we make this better? And a lot of them talk about and use the word AI, machine learning, like you were saying, Durin. And how they were describing is like, a lot of the times it's me and my software, my movie by myself, but I can see AI being kind of like a co-pilot, like a co-editor with me. So it's like giving me suggestions about like what I can do better, or like how I can speed up some processes instead of just being a tool. It's more like that virtual partner that you have on your side that is going to help you speed up in all these new eras. Like, I don't think we haven't seen this before, and
Yeah.
now more and more and more and more projects are sometimes are a one-man job. A couple of filmmakers that they're doing the same as Jim, like doing documentaries, like 2 hour, 3 hour documentaries, all by themselves in their own home studios, and finishing at a great quality thanks to the tools that they have today that they wouldn't be able to do 25 years ago.
10
I'm going
years.
to plagiarize a
mean,
comment I saw online. I don't remember where I saw it or who said it. So I'm sorry, I'll attribute it to you later. But I think they said, you can only save me so much time. At some point, you have to help me make it better too. And I think that fits a lot of where that I see things shifting.
Perfect. I mean, the one of the things that, in fact, even if you just go smaller and smaller into the AI domain, and you just look at only probably music generation, like just leave the rest of the editing away and only generating music and doing that with AI. There are about 20 companies doing it, and one of them was acquired by TikTok in the last 3 months, and they all have a different way of doing it. Some of them look at the video and then generate the audio. Some of them look at the instruments and then generate the audio. Some of them, I don't know, look at some text and then generate the audio. So everybody does it differently, and it's just and with AI generated content, the biggest advantage is no royalty, right? So it's fairly straightforward for anybody to go and use it, and it just makes all the sense. Just to look at this part of it, artificial intelligence and machine learning and neural networks and recurrent neural networks of music and stuff like that. It's just a very niche set of technology, but that itself, that alone, is now booming. And if you just extrapolate that to the other other editing facets, that is just again a very, very big industry. That artificial intelligence for editing is a huge industry, and even just music generation alone is good enough for companies like TikTok to go and acquire. So that just makes sense.
True. Jim, what on that vein, what do you think about some of the advances, or maybe if we'll call them advances, in like virtual actors, virtual talent?
Oh man, if I could work with talent that didn't have opinions, that would be amazing. No, I'm kidding. There's a good quote from W.C. Fields when Talking Movies came out. He said, Mr. Fields, did you realize that very soon people will be able to hear actors talk? And he said, why would I want to hear actors talk? I thought that was pretty good. I think it's going to be interesting. Like, I think really the technology always advises the artwork. And when something comes out en masse to consumer video creators, it becomes this new patina. It becomes this new thing that everybody is using. It's an Instagram filter or a Snapchat filter or something that people become familiar with. And it becomes the artist's job, usually the broke artist's job, to come out and use something that elevates that, to steal that type of filmmaking and do it in a new way that is impressive to audiences. So like, I think really we're just at the beginning of that. Like, it's deep fake technology is not the most complicated thing. It's just facial tracking and then applying AI generations of 3D heads or just image, placard onto someone's face. But the way that, Trey Parker and Matt Stone are doing it is very different. They're doing it as this kind of comedy for their goofy YouTube channel because they had free time during the pandemic. Like, I think that the kind of like baseline AI technology coming out into the world is only just beginning, and it's going to take artists trying to impress people by making unsanitized artwork. I think we're only at the cusp of how this stuff is going to play out.
There's going to be some speed bumps and potholes before we get on the open road.
I can't wait.
We got a couple minutes. Does anybody have any good sound related disaster stories or maybe miracles? We can end on a positive note, or go for it. You got it, Jim.
I updated very stupidly to the newest version of Audition, having kind of cheat coded the first project file. I had almost finished the mix of the movie. It was probably about 43 days into mixing the film. And I realized in updating it, it threw off all of the speaker delineations for the tracks. So it was just mono. It was no longer 5.1. And I was so confused. And I just thought, oh, I'm going to have to do it again. I'm going to have to do it by hand, which is something that I continually have to remind myself because of the ways that we make movies, that it's just going to take doing it again. And that was one of the biggest setbacks of like, it was just going to be 2 more days of me having to devote the entirety of these next 2 days to doing it. But nobody else was going to do it. I had to do it. And it was really freeing where people were like, oh no, there's got to be a way to do it. And I was like, no, it just means I'm going to have to crawl through each of the project files and make sure it's a love letter to work I've already done, you know? It was funny to have to talk to people and try and figure out a way to cheat code it. And then I was like, no, it just takes the hard work. So that was the biggest conflict, but then it had a happy ending. The movie ended up working out.
Yeah. We can talk about that offline. I'm very curious what happened there because that seems odd. Adolfo, Satish, how about you guys?
On a related AI thing, a couple of years ago, I was working on a project where we would be needed to train an audio model to identify certain sounds. And it's like AI sound identification was still working. And I started training something with a specific microphone near a machine. It was like a saw. And we left the microphone there running just to be able to capture some sounds. But we didn't realize that one of the workers from that who was controlling the machine was also eating at the same time because we left and we were like that. So suddenly we were trying to figure out if the machine was failing or not. And the model was trained. We kind of like curated the whole data set because we automized the process of editing of that. But suddenly we were getting like false information of like, it's not failing, what's happening? And it was the same guy who was operating the machine. He was eating some chips. And every time that he was near the machine and eating chips, that was signaling that the machine was like failing. So we had to redo the whole models. And it's just like getting to the learning that is like, we're getting there with AI and machine learning. And we just need to work more and like be accurate. Not everything is magical. There's a process through it and that we need to go through. But yeah, it was really funny because he had a schedule of when he was eating and he was eating those chips and that would trigger a sensor. And I was like, come on. So I think there's a bright future for it and we're taking the right steps. But yeah, we're going to find a lot of these things happening.
I think the theme is stop relying on everybody else. You got to do it yourself.
Yeah.
I had one quick story. I try and do a lot of support a lot of art installations. Sometimes it's temporal for a festival, or sometimes it's permanent. And one year, I got asked to help figure out the audio side of this installation at a festival actually called Lo-Fi Fest. So it was the concept was you're out in the woods and everything's outside, and I show up with my part, and everybody else's parts fell apart. So all we really had was the equipment that I brought. And so we pivoted and we made a couple signs. We painted a sign and we started spreading some stories around through the different people who are attending, that the rumor or the legend was that if you have something that's burdening your soul, you have a dark secret, you can find a tree with a hole in the middle, and you can sit in, you can whisper your secret into the hole, and the tree will disperse your secret into the ground, and your soul will be unburdened. And so inside, we found a perfect tree with a hole in it, and inside there, I put a little voice modulated recording device and a broadcaster. And about 300 yards down the trail was another tree with this playback speaker playing it in. So, as somebody would go whisper their secret, everybody else was down at this other tree listening. And we thought it was fun. It was like, we saved the day. We have something at least. I went back later that afternoon, and there's a picnic set up. There's about 20 people sitting around the listening tree, waiting for the next person to walk up to the secret tree. And you'll start to hear the crunch of footsteps, and 20 people like, shh, 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 shh. and they're all listening intently to find out what the next secret was, and it was fantastic. And then that tree had a sign that said you can never trust a tree. So that was kind of turning a disaster into a wonderful, wonderful miracle experience. Hey, that's the time. That went quick. Thanks to everyone for joining the live stream today, and to those of you watching the recordings later. My thanks to Jim Cummings. Hey, Jim, where can people find you online if they want to?
Twitter, I am Jimmy C. That's me, and Instagram.
Jimmy C with a Jimmyc. That's me. Thanks to my Adobe guests, Adolfo and Satish, as well as Michael and Matt, who have been answering the questions in the live stream chats. Thanks to Patrick on the remote console running this whole shebang, and to Linda for keeping us on track and connected. I'm Durin Gleaves, at Durin Gleaves, if you can figure out how to spell that, maybe look down below. And if you'll be attending NAB in Las Vegas between April 23rd and 27th, please come visit us at the Adobe booth in the North Hall this year, or visit nabshow.com to find out more. And please join us for next month's AVC meetup on April 27th. And until then, have a wonderful day and happy editing.